Hi students, welcome back to the next video of this chapter. In this video, we will cover some topics, and the very first topic that we are going to cover is protecting the rights of Dalits and Adivasis. Moving on, let's understand how government protects the rights of Dalits and Adivasis through an example. So here it goes. So there was a story wherein there was a person known as Ratnam who is an engineering student. He's a 20-year-old boy who is an engineering student and he belongs to a Dalit family. Okay, and as we all know, there are some rituals that Dalits and these minority communities have to forcefully follow. So just like that, there was a ritual that was supposed to be followed by his family, that was washing the feet of this majority community. So the majority community used to force the Dalits to wash their feet, and Ratnam was also asked by his family to do the same. While Ratnam refused to do so, Ratnam did not do that, and he said that I wouldn't, wash the feet, even though we are Dalits, we are not supposed to wash anybody's feet, right, forcefully. So he refuses to do so. And now, since Ratnam was well educated and he knew, he was aware about the laws that have been enforced in the country to safeguard such people, and he knew what was happening. A direct discrimination was happening between majority and minority, and that is why he refused. And even the majority community, people who belong to the majority community, even said that, you are more educated, you know more than us now, that is why you're refusing to do so. And in regard to the statement of Ratnam, where he refused to wash their feet, the people who belong to majority community said that, okay, now you're not, you're refusing to follow this ritual of yours. They said that now we'll boycott you. You are asked to leave this village. You are not supposed to leave this, you're not allowed to live in this village now. Now you have to leave this village. And the people started socially boycotting his and his family. And even to an extent, what happened that day at night, the people who belong to the majority community even tried to fire his hut. And the next day, he went to the police station to complain about all of this. That how can someone try to kill them? How can someone kill them, even though they belong to Dalit family? Nobody can try to kill them. Nobody can socially boycott them. And so he filed this complaint against this act, SC and ST Act 1988, 1989. So we'll understand about this SC and ST Act in the other slides. As of now, let's just understand that this person, Ratnam, who's a 20-year-old boy engineering student, complained about how he was, how people attempted to kill him, how he was socially being boycotted, and how he was being discriminated on the basis of his religion and caste. And so he filed his petition, he filed his case in the police station the next day. Let's see then what happened. Now, the police obviously took some steps because his right was being violated, and here are some consequences which have been written. Let's just first read. The Dalits were worried about angering the upper caste. Ratnam's family was ostracized by his own community, and the family was attacked by the villagers and forced to leave the village. This is what I actually told you in the story, that when Ratnam was asked to follow the same ritual as his family does, he refused to do so because now he is aware of the fact that he's being discriminated. And there are some laws that have been enforced in the country to safeguard these people, and so was not afraid to raise his voice and file a case against those people. That is why he refused to follow this ritual that was based on the discrimination of the caste that was happening in the village. And that is why he refused, that he wouldn't follow this ritual which was being followed by his family, because he knew, he was aware that there are some laws which have been enforced in the country to safeguard people from such rituals. And so that is why he went to the police and filed this case. Now, here is a line that is mentioned, that the Dalits were worried about angering the upper caste. Now, his own family over there did not support Ratna. Now, why did not support him? Because they were basically afraid that, those people, obviously, we know that Dalits are considered to be lower caste, and so they are not so powerful. They used to work under those powerful caste people. They used to work under those majority community. They either used to work as a domestic worker in their house, or they used to work on their lands as farmers or tenants. So they used to work under them, and so they were afraid that if they would raise their voice against them, there is a possibility that they were asked to leave the job, or they were evicted from the job. And they were afraid that if in case that they would be evicted from the job, there would have been no other place for them to go. They wouldn't be able to earn livelihood if they would raise their voice. So they were afraid, and that is why they did not support Ratnam, their own son, in front of the majority community, right? And Ratnam's family was ostracized by his own community. Now, his family was not supported by the people of their community only because they were afraid that they will be asked to evict, or they will be asked to leave the job, or they will be pushed out from their job. That is why they did not support Ratnam and Ratnam's family. And even Ratnam's family was afraid to support him in front of the people of majority community. The family was attacked by villagers and forced to leave the village. Now, as I told you in the story, that when Ratnam refuses to follow the same ritual his family was following, he was asked to leave the village. Also at night, he was attacked. His hut was set on fire. He was, there was an attempt to kill him. So this was all that Ratnam has to face, and this is why he filed a case in the police station, and the police station definitely took some steps in order to safeguard Ratnam and his family. So this was just a short example in order to make you understand how government protects the rights of Dalits and Adivasis. Moving on. Okay, so here a discussion which goes, in your opinion, does the force put on Ratnam to perform this ritual violates his fundamental rights? Obviously, it violates his fundamental right. As you all know, one of the fundamental rights is right to equality, which is nobody will be discriminated on the basis of religion, caste, and gender, and thus equal rights will be given to each and every person. And in this example that we studied, there was a direct discrimination that was happening on the basis of caste and religion. Therefore, right to equality was being violated. The second question says, why do you think the Dalit families were afraid of angering the powerful caste? I have already told you that Dalit families were afraid of angering on the powerful caste and supporting Ratnam and his family because they were afraid that if they would raise the voice against the powerful caste people or support Ratnam and his family, there could be a possibility that the powerful caste people would remove them from their jobs, and there would be no other place for them to go and earn money because they are less powerful people. They belong to poor background, and so they do not have enough money to start their own business or do their own work. So they used to work under these powerful caste people as a domestic worker, or they used to work as a tenant on their lands. And so they were afraid that if they would raise their voice against these powerful people, they would be asked to leave the job, they would be removed from the job, and then there would be no other place for them to go. Okay, so that is why Dalit families were afraid of angering the powerful caste. Moving on. Okay, now as we discussed, one of the act against which Ratnam was able to file the case, and I told you that we'll discuss this in other slides. Now it's time to discuss this act, which is Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Act 1918. On this particular act, on this particular law, Ratnam was able to file the case as he was aware of the fact that there has been some laws which have been enforced by the government, because of which one of his rights is to file a case against these majority communities if in case such discrimination happens. So one of these laws is Scheduled Tribes and Scheduled Tribe Act 1989. So let's now understand the story as in how this act came into force. So once what happened, in 1970 and 1980, a group of Dalits started to protest against government. They started to say that they won't follow such stupid, act or rituals, as we discussed in the example that they were supposed to wash the feet of the people who belong to majority community. So a group of Dalits started to protest. They started coming together and they started to protest against the government that they wouldn't now follow these particular rituals. They wouldn't do these rituals as it is not their duty. If they're doing it by their will, then it is good. But if they're forced to do so, then it is wrong. It is completely wrong. And now they're not going to continue such rituals, or they're not going to do such things that they are forced to do by the majority community. And so government actually listened to their petition, they listened to their problems, and they validated their problems. And such a law was being passed. That is Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Act 1989 was being passed by the government after listening to the problems that were faced by the Dalits, against which if anybody tries to discriminate against them on the basis of their religion and caste, that person will be punished. Okay. Now, there are some features of this act. Okay, so what happened now? Okay, so there are basically some specifications made by the government that in case that this happens, that this person will be punished. So basically, there are some specifications made by the government under this act, and it says that in case um, any particular person tries to violate the specification, that person will be punished. Now let's understand what I'm basically trying to say here. So the very first point says that list modes of humiliation that are both physically and morally reprehensible. That means that basically government has validated humiliation and had made two types of humiliation. First is physical and the other is moral. Physical humiliation is basically physically hurting someone, like beating someone, right? And moral humiliation, as we saw in the example wherein people were forced to wash the feet of the people who belong to majority community. So this is a direct humiliation on the this is a humiliation that is happening, right? So this is an example of moral humiliation. So this act says that nobody is allowed to physically and morally humiliate Dalits and Adivasis. And in case somebody tries to do so, that person will be punished for the act. The second point says list actions that disposes Dalits and Adivasis of their resources or force them into slave labor. Now, let me give you an example of the actions that were listed in this particular act. Now, there used to be incidents where Dalits were forced to drink urine. They were forced to drink weird and obnoxious drinks, and they were forced to forced to eat different kinds of horrible food that is not supposed to be consumed by human, right? So, like urine is not supposed to be drank by a human, and there used to be instances where they were forced to drink such things or eat such things, right? And there used to be incidents where they were their clothes were removed and their faces were painted, and they used to be forced to do parades in the street. So such actions wherein you are forcing the people to eat or drink things which are not supposed to be consumed by humans, or painting their faces or removing their clothes and asking them to parade, forcing them to parade in the streets naked with their painted face. Such actions are being prohibited under this act, and if somebody tries to do this to people, that person will be punished for the same. The third point says separately recognizes crimes against Dalit and tribal women. Now, this point says that in case somebody tries to sexually assault or humiliate women, Dalit and tribal women, that person will be punished. So these three things, that is, Dalits shouldn't or Dalits cannot be humiliated, physically humiliated or morally humiliated. Second point says that actions such as forcing them to drink or eat things which are not supposed to be consumed by humans, this act is prohibited. And acts wherein you force people to parade naked with their painted face is also prohibited. And sexually assaulting women and humiliating them is also prohibited. If any of the if any person, if any community tries to do this to Dalits or Adivasis, they would be punished for the same. Moving on. Okay, so here's a question which says, can you list two different provisions in the 1989 Act? Okay. Okay, so one of the provision is to safeguard the scheduled tribes and scheduled castes from the actions that we discussed in the previous slide, wherein they were forced to walk naked, parade naked in the streets, or with the painted faces, or they were forced to drink obnoxious drinks and eat weird foods which are not supposed to be eaten by humans. So these particular actions were taken by the majority community, and they were forced on the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And one of the provisions in this act is to safeguard such people from these acts. The second provision is so in case anybody tries to forcibly take the land which have been allotted to the Dalits or the Adivasis, that person will be punished for the same. That is, that in case that there is a land allotted by the government to the Dalit, or there is a land that is in the name of the Dalit, there is a land which belongs to a Dalit, and if somebody who belongs to majority community tries to forcibly take that land from him, will be punished for his act. So these are the two provisions in the 1989 Act. Moving forward to manual scavenging. Okay, so what is manual scavenging? Manual scavenging is basically the process of cleaning human excreta and animal excreta through the use of broom or baskets or your own hands. Now, what do we mean? In very simple language, basically, cleaning the human and animal waste through brooms and hands is known as manual scavenging, and the people who do it are known as manual scavengers. Now, why do someone become a manual scavenger? Nobody would be, interested in becoming a manual scavenger. So, why would people do this manual scavenging? So, here is a story behind all this. That we all know that there is human waste, which is very natural, right? But it is not supposed to be cleaned by people, right? There should be technology, there should be machines who are responsible for cleaning human excreta and human waste. And so this used not to be happened. What used to happen was that the entire society used to ask a particular group or society to clean their human excreta, to clean the human waste through the through brooms or through baskets. So, and they used to exclude that particular group or society that they used to ask to basically they used to make a particular society, they used to ask a particular society, a group of people, to do manual scavenging, and then they used to exclude that particular group from the entire society, and they used to marginalize that particular society. They used to validate that particular society through different names. They used to give different names to those people who used to be manual scavengers. First, they are forcing a particular group or society to be manual scavengers, then they are giving different names to them, and they are also excluding them from the society, and then they are considering them as untouchables. This used to happen in villages way before. People used to create a particular society and ask them to, they used to ask particular group of people or a particular society to be manual scavengers, and then they used to exclude them from the society and consider them untouchables. They also used to give them very different names and call them by them, which was very, very wrong. And so an act was passed. So an act was passed for the same, to safeguard such people who are being forced to become manual scavengers, who are being forced to clean human excreta and animal excreta, who are being forced to, go into the chambers themselves and clean the human waste through their hands and brooms. So a particular act was being made in order to safeguard such people, and the name of this act was the Employment of Manual Scavengers and Construction of Dry Latrines Act, and it was passed in 1993. And now you might have understood that if someone would be forced to go into a chamber and asked to clean human excreta, how many problems that person would be facing, right? Now let's list some of the problems that these manual scavengers were facing. Okay, so one of the main problems that they were facing was, if somebody would ask to go into a particular chamber which is full of human waste and animal waste, and you will be, somebody will be asked to clean that through broom or basket or anything, that person is exposed to so many infections, skin infections, mouth infections, respiratory infections. That person bodies is exposed to so many infections, right? And also these people who were forced to be manual scavengers were given very low wages, and on the other hand, they were also being excluded from the society. They were asked to live on the outskirts of the villages. They were not even included in the society. They were excluded from the society. They were asked to live at the outskirts of the villages. They were given low villages. They were given low wages. They were exposed to so many infections. If you are going into a chamber which is full of human waste, you can imagine by yourself that that is open to so many infections, right? There is so much waste that is there, and you're open to skin infection. You're open to respiratory infection. You're open to gaseous infections, right? And these people were not even respected. They were considered as untouchables. They were first being excluded. They were given low wages. They were exposed to so many skin infections, and after all that, they were also considered untouchables, right? So all these problems were being faced by the manual scavengers, and that is why an act was enforced and law was enforced by the government, which was the Employment of Manual Scavengers and Construction of Dry Latrines Act, which was passed in 1993 to safeguard such manual scavengers because they were facing so many problems. Obviously, someone would be there to clean human excreta and animal excreta, right? But that is not supposed to be done by humans. And in case that it is supposed to be done by humans, it is not supposed to be forced by someone. If you're doing it by your will, then it is good. But if you're forced to do this, that means there is a discrimination on the basis of the caste. That is, you're forced to do such things which is not supposed to be done by human. It is quite obvious that you're supposed to so many infection, and it is quite disrespectful also that you're uh, cleaning human excreta, but all that. You can imagine how disrespecting it is. And it is not supposed to be done by humans. There should be a technology, there should be a machine which is supposed to clean all that. And thus this particular law was enforced in 1993, considering the problems faced by the manual scavengers. And thus machines were introduced which used to clean the human and animal excreta from the chamber. Now, in 2003, the Safai Karamchari Andolan filed a PIL in the Supreme Court. Now, what it is? Now, after the law was being enforced in the country in 1993, still there were some people who used to force people to become manual scavengers, right? And thus, this Safai Karamchari Andolan, which is a non-profit organization, filed a petition in the Supreme Court on the behalf of those manual scavengers, saying that even though a law has been enforced in the country, still there are some people who are forcing people to become manual scavengers. They're forcing people to clean human excreta, and that is why they filed this petition in the Supreme Court, saying that their problem should be validated and a solution should be taken out considering their problem. Okay, this is what is written in this slide, that even though the law has been passed, now we understood what is manual scavenging, right? Now we understood what were the problems faced by manual scavenging, and that is why, considering those problems, the law was enforced. We understood why Safai Karamchari Andolan filed a petition, because filed a PIL, that is public interest litigation. You might know we've covered this particular topic in the previous chapter, wherein the third organization can also file a petition on behalf of the people who are facing the problem. So in this case, Safai Karamchari Andolan filed a PIL in the Supreme Court on the behalf of the manual scavengers, saying that even though the law has been enforced, still there are some people who are forcing people to clean human excreta. They're forcing people to be manual scavengers, right? And they filed this petition in the Supreme Court expecting a solution to their problem. So now we understood manual scavenging, problems faced by manual scavenging, what steps did government take in order to safeguard such people, and still why Safai Karamchari Andolan filed a PIL. Moving on. So here's a question which says, what do you understand by manual scavenging? Why did the Safai Karamchari Andolan file a PIL in 2003? What did they complain about in their petition? After all the explanation that I've given to you, after all the explanation that I've given in the previous slide, now you might yourself be able to answer the question, but still we will recall the answer, okay? So manual scavenging is a process through which a person is supposed to clean the animal and human excreta using brooms and baskets, etc. Okay, and the people who do this are known as manual scavengers. Why did the Safai Karamchari Andolan file a PIL in 2003? They filed a PIL in 2003 because even though the laws were being enforced safeguarding such manual scavengers, still there were some people who were forcing people to be manual scavengers and cleaning the animal and human excreta, and therefore they filed a petition in 2003 to Supreme Court so that Supreme Court consider their problem, to listen their petition, and they find a solution to their problem. What did they complain about in the petition? They complained that there were, they complain the same, that there are some people who are forcing the people who belong to minority communities, that is Dalits, to be manual scavengers, to clean human excreta and animal excreta using brooms and all that. So this was what was written in the complaint, that even though the laws were enforced in the country, still there still exists manual scavenging, and they filed this petition so that Supreme Court consider their problem and find a solution for the same. Moving on to the next question. From the list of fundamental rights, list two rights that the practice of manual scavenging violates. One of them is right to equality, that everybody will be given equal rights. Nobody will be discriminated on the basis of religion, caste, and gender. And thus, we can evidently see that in manual scavenging, people forced a particular group or society to be manual scavengers, that is, to clean human and animal excreta using brooms and all that. That is against right to equality. That is, you're not giving equal rights, you're discriminating them. You are discriminating them on the basis of caste, not giving them equal rights, right? So, right to equality is being evidently violated, right? The second fundamental right which is being violated in the practice of manual scavenging is right against exploitation. People are being exploited, right? People are being exploited. People are open to so many problems. They are vulnerable to so many problems just because of this practice, manual scavenging. We understood that during manual scavenging, you're exposed to so many infections, you're exposed to so many diseases, so many problems. Obviously, it is quite obvious that if you are exposed to a place which is full of human waste and animal waste, there could be so many infections that you could be exposed to. There could be so many diseases that you could be exposed to. So, the right to exploitation is also violated in this practice of manual scavenging. So, two fundamental rights, one is right to equality and the other is right against exploitation, has been violated in the practice of manual scavenging. This brings us to the end of this video. We'll connect in the next video. By then, thank you so much for joining me on Study Room.